Pirates had gold, power, and total freedom, but something on board made daily life almost unbearable. It wasn't the fear of cannon fire or mutiny, it was something much closer, something they lived with every hour. What was hygiene really like on a pirate ship, and how bad did it actually get? Before we get into the details, let's start with the setting. Pirate ships were basically floating garbage cans with sails. These vessels made a barnyard look like a luxury spa. These boats were packed tighter than sardines in a can, 50 to 80 men crammed into spaces barely big enough for half that number. Personal space was a fairy tale that nobody believed in anymore. The decks were never truly dry. Seawater splashed constantly over the rails, mixing with spilled food, human sweat, and whatever else the crew had tracked around. Rain added to the mess, creating puddles that turned into permanent lakes of nastiness. Every surface was slippery with a combination of salt water and grime that stuck like glue. Wooden planks swelled and warped from the constant moisture. Ropes turned green with fuzzy mold. Barrels leaked and rotted from the inside out, their contents seeping into the floorboards below. The smell of decay hung in the air like a thick fog that never lifted. Food storage was a complete disaster. Supplies were stuffed wherever they fit, often right next to sleeping areas. Rats fought over moldy bread with the fury of starving wolves. But wait, it gets worse. Below deck was even more horrifying. These lower areas were like dungeons that had given up on life. Dark, cramped, and with barely any fresh air flowing through. The wooden walls dripped with condensation and grew thick patches of mildew. Then there was the smell problem. Everything smelled wrong. The wood absorbed years of sweat, vomit, and spilled drinks. Old cargo sat forgotten in corners, slowly turning into mysterious substances that defied description. Housekeeping standards were lower than a snake's belly. Pirates lived in this mess for months at a time. They ate in it, slept in it, and eventually stopped caring about it. The human nose can only handle so much before it just surrenders completely. Most crew members became so used to the stench that fresh air actually started to smell weird to them. Nobody bothered to clean anything. There were no cleaning schedules, no soap, and definitely no volunteers for scrub duty. Ship cleaning was about as effective as polishing barnacles. Water barrels turned green with slime. Food scraps stuck to every surface like glue. The crew tracked mud, tar, and worse throughout the vessel daily. Even the captain's quarters reeked of mold and neglect. Cockroaches scurried across tables where pirates ate their meals. Mice left droppings in corners that nobody bothered to sweep away. The ship's cat, if they had one, gave up hunting because there were simply too many pests to catch. But the state of their mouths tells an even more disturbing story. Pirates had teeth that looked like a cemetery after an earthquake. Calling them teeth was being extremely generous. Toothbrushes did not exist yet. Neither did toothpaste. Some desperate souls tried using rough cloth to scrub their teeth, but most could not be bothered. A few used wood ash mixed with water, which actually worked better than nothing, but ash was usually needed for cooking fires instead. The real destroyer was their diet. Pirates loved their rum more than their own mothers. They also consumed massive amounts of molasses and whatever sugary treats they could steal from merchant ships. Every sip of rum fed the bacteria that were busy eating away at their teeth from the inside. It was like hiring termites to remodel your house. And that's not even the worst part. Scurvy made everything 10 times worse. This disease attacked their gums directly. Healthy pink gums turned red and swollen. They bled at the slightest touch. Teeth that had been firmly rooted for decades suddenly became loose and wobbly. Many pirates watched their teeth fall out one by one, often while eating or just talking. Some would wake up to find a tooth on their pillow. The tooth fairy was apparently working overtime, but she forgot to leave any coins. Infections were absolutely brutal. Abscesses formed when bacteria invaded damaged teeth, creating pockets of pus that caused constant, throbbing pain. Pirates suffered through this agony with nothing but rum to dull the pain, which probably made things worse. When a tooth became unbearable, removal was the only option. Pirates used whatever they could find. Knives, pliers, even fishing hooks served as dental equipment. The ship's carpenter was often the closest thing to a dentist they had. Getting dental work from a carpenter was like asking a blacksmith to bake bread. By the time they reached middle age, many had lost most of their teeth entirely. Their faces collapsed inward from lack of teeth to support their cheeks and lips. When your mouth is basically a haunted house for dead teeth, fresh breath is not exactly a priority. Eating became a nightmare. Hard biscuits had to be soaked in rum or water until they turned to mush. Many pirates survived on gruel and soup because chewing was impossible. The lucky ones kept a few back teeth for grinding food. Pirates would hide their remaining teeth like precious gems, covering their mouths when they laughed or smiled. Younger crew members often stared in horror at the toothless grins of veteran sailors, seeing their own grim future reflected back. But oral problems were not their only bathroom-related challenges. Going to the bathroom on a pirate ship was like playing dice with your dignity, and sometimes with your life. There were no toilets, not even close. Most pirates simply hung their backsides over the side of the ship and hoped for the best. This meant doing their business while waves crashed below and the ship rolled back and forth like a drunken elephant. The timing had to be perfect, or you would end up decorating the side of your own ship. The wind direction mattered too. A sudden gust could blow everything right back where it came from. Nature had a twisted sense of humor when it came to bathroom breaks. Some ships had makeshift facilities called heads, which were just wooden platforms with holes cut in them. These hung out over the water at the front of the ship. They offered slightly more stability, but not much more dignity. Everyone could see you doing your business. What's more, privacy was completely non-existent. Bathroom breaks happened in full view of the entire crew. Pirates learned to ignore each other's bathroom habits out of pure survival instinct. Privacy vanished faster than fresh water in a drought. Toilet paper had not been invented yet. Pirates used whatever they could find. Scraps of cloth, rope ends, or just handfuls of seawater served as cleaning materials. Some did not bother cleaning up at all. Rough seas turned bathroom visits into extreme sports. Waves could easily wash someone overboard while they were in their most vulnerable position. Night visits were especially treacherous. More than one pirate probably reconsidered their career choice while hanging over the rail at 3 in the morning. Some ships used buckets as backup facilities during storms. These buckets had to be emptied regularly, which meant someone had the delightful job of carrying human waste across a rolling deck without spilling. Pirates basically lived in a floating outhouse that never got cleaned. The smell was overwhelming. Human waste mixed with seawater created a stench that clung to clothing and hair. Pirates developed stomach problems from the constant exposure to unsanitary conditions and contaminated surfaces. Some crew members got so sick from the filth that they could barely stand upright during their duties. The wooden deck became permanently stained with waste that soaked deep into the grain, creating odors that lasted for years. Their wardrobe situation was equally challenging. Pirates owned about as many clothes as a broke college student during exam week. Except college students eventually find a laundromat. Most pirates had 1, maybe 2 complete sets of clothing. That was it. No walk-in closets, no seasonal wardrobes, and definitely no backup outfits. What they wore was what they owned, and what they owned had to last for months at sea. Washing clothes was nearly impossible. Fresh water was too precious to waste on laundry when people needed it for drinking and cooking. The only option was seawater, which created its own nightmare of problems. Here's the catch, though. Washing clothes with seawater worked about as well as scrubbing with sand. The salt made the fabric stiff and scratchy. Clothes dried into rigid, uncomfortable boards that rubbed against the skin like sandpaper. On top of that, drying space was another major problem. Ships were crammed with equipment, supplies, and people. Anything hung up to dry usually got soaked again within hours from sea spray or rain. Without proper drying, clothes developed mold and mildew almost immediately. Green and black patches spread across fabric like slow-motion explosions. Pirates wore tie-dye shirts before tie-dye was cool, except their patterns came from fungus. Undergarments were rare luxuries. Most pirates wore just their outer layers against their skin. The fabric became saturated with body oils and grime that never washed out completely. Dirty clothes attracted bugs like magnets. When clothes tore, pirates patched them with whatever material was available. Sails, rope, even pieces of other clothing served as patches. Some pirates looked like walking quilts made from a fabric store explosion. Colors faded quickly in the harsh sun and salt spray. Everything started to look the same after a few months at sea. The smell of unwashed clothes mixed with other ship odors to create layers of stench. Adding stolen perfume to filthy clothes was like decorating a shipwreck with silk ribbons. Fabric literally rotted off their bodies. Seams split from the constant dampness and movement. Pirates often wrapped themselves in canvas or the sailcloth when their regular clothes finally fell apart completely. Some desperate souls fashioned clothing from stolen curtains, bed sheets, or even old flags they had captured from enemy vessels. The wealthier pirates hoarded extra shirts like treasure, knowing that fabric was often more valuable than gold on long voyages. But clothes were not the only things crawling with unwanted guests. Pirates were never alone. They had more roommates than a boarding house, except these roommates were tiny, hungry, and impossible to evict. Lice were the most common uninvited guests. These little bloodsuckers loved human hair and found pirate scalps to be prime real estate. Head lice laid their eggs right at the base of hair shafts where they were nearly impossible to remove. The eggs hatched every 7 to 10 days, creating fresh generations of bugs. The constant feeding caused intense itching and irritation. Pirates scratched until they created open sores on their scalps. Many crew members shaved their heads completely. Going bald was the nuclear option in the war against lice. Body lice were even worse. These parasites lived in clothing seams and came out to feed on human blood several times a day. They caused constant itching, skin irritation, and small red bite marks all over the body. Fleas jumped aboard whenever pirates visited ports or raided ships. Fleas were basically the Olympic high jumpers of the insect world. They bit humans when their preferred hosts were not available, creating small, itchy bumps that lasted for days. Rats were permanent residents on most pirate ships. These were not cute pet rats. These were aggressive, disease-carrying rodents that feared nothing and ate everything. They multiplied faster than pirates could kill them. A single pair could produce hundreds of offspring in just 1 year. It was like running a bed and breakfast for rodents, except the guests never paid and always left a mess. The rats carried their own parasites, including fleas and mites that readily jumped to human hosts. Bedding and hammocks became breeding grounds for every type of parasite imaginable. The fabric was so infested that it practically moved on its own. Fighting bugs with old-school technology was like bringing a butter knife to a sword fight. Sleep became torture. Pirates would wake up covered in fresh bites and scratches. Some crew members preferred sleeping on deck under the stars rather than face the insect armies waiting in their hammocks below. The constant itching drove men to madness, scratching until they drew blood and created open wounds that never healed properly. Pirates developed thick, calloused skin from years of scratching, but even that could not stop the relentless assault of hungry parasites. But parasites were just one part of a much larger health crisis brewing below decks. Minor cuts turned into major problems faster than you could say buried treasure. A tiny scratch could literally kill you, which made everyday life feel like Russian roulette. Everything on the ship was dirty and contaminated with dangerous bacteria. When pirates got injured, which happened constantly, their wounds immediately became infected. A simple scratch from a rusty nail could lead to gangrene, amputation, or death within days. Pirates used rum for everything medical. Got a cut? Pour rum on it. Broken bone, drink rum, fever, more rum. Rum was basically their universal health potion, except it worked about as well as using honey to fix a broken mast. Meanwhile, the air below deck was toxic and dangerous. Stagnant, humid conditions created perfect breeding grounds for deadly bacteria and mold. Pirates breathed in this contaminated air for months at a time, leading to lung problems that never seemed to go away. To make matters worse, the ship's air quality made a coal mine seem like a health resort. Disease spread like wildfire in the cramped quarters. Typhus caused high fevers and delirium. Dysentery turned the digestive system into a war zone, causing bloody diarrhea and severe dehydration. When someone got seriously sick, the treatment options were extremely limited. Pirates could not afford to keep sick crew members who could not work. Some crews tried burning herbs or tobacco to mask the smell and supposedly purify the air. It was like trying to fix a garbage smell by lighting a tire on fire. The constant dampness made everything worse. Wounds never dried properly. Skin stayed soft and vulnerable to infection. Death was a constant companion. Pirates who survived past 40 were considered ancient by ship standards. Many crews lost half their members during long voyages, not from battles, but from disease and infection. The sea claimed more pirates than enemy swords ever did. Captains often recruited new crew members at every port just to replace the ones who had died from illness. Smart pirates kept their wills updated and said their prayers nightly, knowing tomorrow was never guaranteed on these floating death traps. The irony was cruel. Pirates spent their lives chasing treasure while slowly poisoning themselves with their own living conditions. They became some of the richest poor men in history, wealthy in coins, but bankrupt in wellness.